September 26, 1983, 12:14 a.m. Moscow time. Deep beneath the frozen soil outside Moscow, a computer screen explodes with light. 5 incoming missiles. Launch detection. Confirmed. Flight time to impact, less than 30 minutes. The protocol is clear. The Soviet Union must retaliate immediately. Nuclear war is no longer a possibility. It's happening. Right now. One man sits at the controls. His name is Stanislav Petrov, a 44-year-old lieutenant colonel who never wanted to be here. In the next 12 minutes, he will make a decision that will determine whether 7 billion people not yet born, children who will never take their first breath, will ever exist. This is not a story about heroes. This is a story about a single, agonizing choice made in a basement, in the middle of the night, by a man the world forgot. To understand what happened that night, you must understand 1983. Not the music, not the movies, the fear. The Cold War isn't cold anymore. It's boiling. 3 weeks earlier, the Soviet Union shot down Korean Airlines Flight 007, killing 269 people, including a U.S. congressman. President Reagan calls them an evil empire. The Kremlin calls America the imperialist aggressor. Both sides have enough nuclear weapons to end civilization 15 times over. The American Pershing II missiles in West Germany can reach Moscow in 6 minutes. The Soviet SS-20s can vaporize London in 4. The strategy is called mutual assured destruction. MAD. The acronym is not accidental. In September 1983, NATO begins a military exercise called Able Archer. Soviet intelligence believes it might be cover for a real first strike. The KGB puts agents on high alert. Moscow's leadership is genuinely convinced that America is preparing to attack. The world is one misunderstanding away from annihilation. And then, the computer detects 5 missiles. Stanislav Yevgrafovich Petrov wasn't supposed to be on duty that night. He was covering for a colleague. A twist of fate. Born in 1939, Petrov grew up in a world at war. His father fought the Nazis. His mother was a nurse who saw unspeakable things. He became an engineer, not a soldier. He designed systems. He believed in logic, in mathematics, in reason. By 1983, he's a lieutenant colonel in the Soviet Air Defense Forces, stationed at Sierpika 15, a secret bunker that houses the USSR's early warning system, OKO, the Eye. This system uses satellites to detect the heat signature of American ICBM launches. Petrov's job is simple in theory, impossible in practice: determine if a nuclear attack is real. If it is, he reports up the chain. The leadership has minutes to decide whether to launch a counterstrike. There is no time for investigation, no time for doubt. He hates this job. Later, he'll say, "I felt like I was being asked to be an executioner." But on September 26th, he's the only executioner on duty. 12:14 a.m. The alarm screams. On Petrov's screen, a single word in Russian: Zapusk. Launch. 1 missile inbound from the United States. Confidence level, highest. Then, seconds later, a second missile. A third. A fourth. A fifth. The protocol is unambiguous. Petrov must immediately call the general staff and report an American first strike. But something doesn't make sense to him. 5 missiles. Why only 5? The United States has thousands. If they're launching a first strike, why send just 5? It would be suicide. It would guarantee Soviet retaliation without guaranteeing Soviet destruction. He has minutes to decide. His subordinates are watching him. The alarm is screaming. The computer says the confidence level is maximum. But Petrov's gut says something else. He remembers something. The satellite system is new. Its head glitches. And right now, there's a rare phenomenon. The sun is at a precise angle where it could reflect off high-altitude clouds and create a false signature. The computer is screaming launch. His training is screaming report. His heart is screaming wait. 12 minutes pass like hours. Petrov doesn't pick up the phone. He doesn't report the launch. Instead, he calls it a system malfunction. His second-in-command protests. The computer is certain, he says. Petrov replies, the computer is wrong. But Petrov isn't certain. He can't be. He's making an educated guess based on logic and instinct. If he's wrong, Soviet missiles will never launch. American warheads will incinerate Moscow, Leningrad, Kiev, and there will be no retaliation. He will have allowed the destruction of his country without a fight. If he's right, nothing happens. The world goes on. But no one will ever know how close we came. 12:28 a.m. The missiles should have impacted by now. The screens show nothing. No explosions. No reports from ground stations. The alarm stops. It was the sun. Reflected off clouds. A trick of light that looked like nuclear war. Stanislav Petrov just saved the world. And no one will thank him for it. The Soviet military is not grateful. They're humiliated. Their brand new satellite system failed spectacularly. Worse, an officer disobeyed protocol, even if he was right. Petrov is not punished, exactly. But he's not rewarded either. He's reassigned. Sidelined. His superiors write in his file that his decision was not backed by proper procedure. Later, he's forced into early retirement. The incident is classified. The Soviet Union never acknowledges how close it came to launching nuclear war over a computer error. For years, no one outside a handful of military officials knows what happened. Petrov returns to civilian life. He gets a job. He grows older. His wife dies. He suffers a nervous breakdown. He lives in a small apartment on a pension of $200 a month. And the world keeps turning, never knowing how close it came to ending. 1998. 15 years later. The Cold War is over. Archives are opening. A researcher finds a classified report about a false alarm in 1983. He finds Petrov's name. The story spreads. Journalists arrive at Petrov's door. They ask him, "Do you realize what you did?" He shrugs. "I was just doing my job." He's invited to the United Nations. Given awards. Called a hero. But Petrov is uncomfortable with the label. He says, "I'm no hero. I was in the right place at the right time. That's all." But others understand what he can't, or won't, accept. If Petrov had followed protocol, if he had trusted the computer, the Soviet Union would have launched. And then the United States, detecting Soviet launches, would have fired their missiles. NATO would have responded. China. Everyone. Within hours, the northern hemisphere would have been uninhabitable. Nuclear winter would have followed. Billions dead. Civilization ended. Here's what we've learned since. The Soviet satellite system, OKO, was fundamentally flawed. Engineers knew it could mistake sunlight for missiles. But they never fixed it. Why? Because admitting the flaw would mean admitting they'd spent billions on a system that didn't work. Soviet pride wouldn't allow it. But here's the terrifying part, this wasn't the only false alarm. In 1979, American systems detected a full-scale Soviet attack. NORAD went to high alert. Fighter jets scrambled. Nuclear bombers took off. The cause? A training tape accidentally loaded into the system. 1980. Another false alarm. This time, a computer chip worth 46 cents failed, triggering warnings of 2,200 incoming missiles. We've come within minutes of accidental nuclear war at least 6 times that we know of. 6 times, someone chose to wait, to doubt, to hesitate. 6 times, human intuition overruled the machine. But what happens when we remove the human? When we let AI make the decision? When the algorithm launches before we can think? One question haunts the historians, what would have happened if Petrov had reported the launch? Would Soviet Premier Yuri Andropov have launched? He was sick, paranoid, convinced the Americans were planning a first strike. Or would cooler heads have prevailed? We'll never know. Because Petrov never made the call. Another mystery, how many other Petrovs are out there? How many other times have we been saved by someone whose name we'll never know? Someone who broke protocol, who trusted their gut, who said no when every system said yes. The truth is, we're alive today because of countless small acts of courage we'll never hear about. We exist in the shadow of disasters that didn't happen, saved by people who were never celebrated. Stanislav Petrov died on May 19, 2017, at the age of 77. His death wasn't announced for months. He died as he lived, quietly, in obscurity. In his last interview, he said something haunting, "I did my job. That's all. But sometimes I think, what if I'd been wrong? What if they really were launching? I would have caused my country's destruction." He lived with that weight. The weight of a decision made in darkness, with no certainty, no support, no safety net. Just a middle-aged engineer, staring at a screen, choosing between possible annihilation and probable survival. Today, there are more nuclear weapons than in 1983. The systems are faster, more automated, more prone to error. And we're trusting them to decide our survival. Stanislav Petrov isn't here to save us anymore. The question is, who will? September 26th is now celebrated as Petrov Day by peace organizations worldwide. They honor a man who, when the machine said the world was ending, had the courage to say, "I don't believe it." Maybe that's the lesson. In the age of algorithms and automation, of systems that make decisions faster than thought, maybe the most important thing a human can do is doubt. To question. To wait. Stanislav Petrov was no hero. He'd tell you that himself. He was just a man who, when the stakes were infinite, chose to be human instead of a cog in the machine.